everyone. I'm John Evans. Welcome to another episode of One-on-One. He has a handful of Wilmington's Best Chef Awards, a finalist for Best Chef in the Southeast. He competed on the Top Chef Network reality TV show. Keith Rhodes is well known for his talents. He's been written about in magazines. He's rubbed elbows with Hollywood stars. But deep down, Keith Rhodes is Wilmington. He's local. Community comes first for the owner of Catch. Keith says the community taught him what he knows, which is creating masterpieces for menus.
One of the things that really sparked that interest in me, and there were a lot of factors growing up, but was just how happy people were. Mm-hmm. People were really happy with food and the idea of coming together under the pretense of a meal. And it was something that I enjoyed watching, just everybody really festive and having fun. And I thought that, hey, it might be something I want to do. But I think that a lot of other factors of me being raised a certain way really kind of drove me into that particular type of field.
Wasn't your grandfather kind of an inspiration to you? Wasn't he? Didn't he inspire you to kind of go into cooking?
Well, my grandfather was very hands-on. Early, I'd say in my early teens, 13 or so, I happened to lose my mother. And my father was just a lone guy, and my grandparents took us in. My grandparents were already retired at the time, and my grandfather had a private bartending service here in Wilmington, where he bartended and contracted out bartenders for a lot of the upper echelon of Wilmington. Mm-hmm. And very often I would go along with him on some of these little outings where he needed a hand doing this or whatever. And again, I saw that. But at home, unfortunately, a lot of the women in the family were not very good cooks. And so my grandfather was not a chef,
right,
but he was just a good cook at
right.
home. And he prepared a lot of the meals at home. And his ideology was always local. And he had a lot of friends that had little farms and things like that. So we often had these little wooden baskets in the house in the summer with tomatoes and cucumbers and all those kind of things. Lots of fish and grits and a lot of seafood and vegetables. And so those meals and those times together, because family was super important to my grandfather, and that was like the super glue of my foundation of growing up, those meals and those times really transcended into what I am today and the food that I offer today mm-hmm. in Catch. There are many variations of a fish and grits, whether it's a black and mahi and some sort of grits. These are foods that are directly inspired from the comforts of me eating with my family.
Did you grow up as a vegetarian, or was it just because those kind of foods were around the house and like from your grandfather?
Well, once my mother passed away, that's when the spectrum began to open up as far as more foods. Now, before that, we were raised Seventh-day Adventists, and we were vegetarians mm-hmm. at that time. And so any kind of non-vegetable access was truly very limited, and I don't remember much of that until after she passed away. We went
right.
on to move with my paternal grandparents.
What did you want to do before you got that itch to start cooking? I imagine as a young man here in town, did you have any thoughts what you wanted to do for a future?
I often told folks that, I really appreciate music, all different kinds. Mm-hmm. Country music, rock music, international sounds. And I really wanted to be an A&R director.
Oh, there you go.
So that was something that I was really looking into the music business, not as an artist per se, but choosing talent. Mm-hmm. And if I didn't pursue my career of being a chef, then that's definitely where I thought that I was going to be going.
Well, how did you get? You said you worked at the surf club. How did you get to the point where you started to get those opportunities to cook? As a young man, and then turn that into a career?
Well, I think that there was a passion there. There was something that I really owned in on. Once my mother passed away and we moved with our grandparents, my grandparents provided us, not only were we inspired, I was definitely inspired by my grandfather and his discipline and his love for family, and they provided a shelter. But there was a huge age gap between us being so young and them being retirees. And I think that, I began to explore friendships in high school and things like that might not have been the best.
Okay.
And so what work also offered me was structure. Work was discipline.
Right.
Work was exciting. It was creative. It inspired me. And so along with having home, which was provided and comforts of home, I was getting a little bit more direction in the kitchen. And that felt good because I came from direction. And having a moment when I was kind of lost for a moment, the kitchen grabbed me, so to speak, and put me right back in place.
Wow, that's interesting.
It is. And cooking in a restaurant, in that particular type of scene, there are a lot of transients. There are a lot of folks who are using that particular career as a stepping stone to get to other places.
Right.
But I found that I really enjoyed that, and then the demands and the structure of that. And so first job was definitely working at the Figure 8 Yacht Club.
Right.
And it was very seasonal. But the members that were there also were members at the Surf Club. And so we would transition from working at Figure 8, let's just say in the summer, and then we would go to the Surf Club in the winter and that kind of thing. And then I took a long stint working at, I think it's Blue Water Grill now. But back then it used to be a place called Wally's.
Right.
And I worked there for about 7 years. And I ended up going to work. After that, I started prepping in the kitchen. My first few jobs were dishwashing, and I paid a lot of attention. And, of course, it's just like any hierarchy. You want to rise in the ranks. And I was at Blue Water, and I prepped a lot, and then I got an opportunity to cook. Wally's was split level. So on the bottom, it was very comfort food, fried food driven, and on the top, it was a little bit of a finer type of dining. Mm-hmm. And that's where I worked up there, and I got my first taste of working in a finer dining type of atmosphere. I went on to be the chef, AM chef at Shell Island Resort. And then they had a huge hurricane that came and damaged the building. And I think that was a very critical point in my career because I had to go out and find another job. And I ended up finding a job at a place called Deluxe.
Downtown.
In downtown Wilmington, 114 Market Street. And when I secured that job, the restaurant had not been renovated yet, but it was on the way. And that was the starting point of my culinary track field of where we are today.
And so that gave you what? The opportunity to be more involved, the opportunity to be part of the crafting of a menu. What did that give you that the others couldn't?
Well, the jobs before, we were really working hard with proving who I was. Mm-hmm. And, again, just trying to rise in the ranks, assuring myself that I could cut this well, could do this well, that I could follow instructions, work independently, and all of those type of things that someone that had went to school professionally would have. I never went to school for that.
Right. You were self-taught.
I was self-taught.
Right.
And so the opportunity to work at Deluxe was really great. I was working for a Johnson Wales graduate, someone who was very professional, my same age, but we had traveled two different paths, and we gelled really well together, and it was really an opportunity for me to polish what I had knew. Mm-hmm. And I think that at that moment, that gave me the opportunity to be able to showcase what I had learned, not knowing what was on the horizon. Mm-hmm. And so many things began to happen so fast. Deluxe was a very successful restaurant with offering what it did at that particular time. And it was really like a no-holds-barred type situation where we were free to serve the public, our audience, varied, imaginative food, mm-hmm. Different types of ingredients, preparations, all of these different things. And I often equate that time to a conductor, an orchestra, or any type of Broadway show and the audience. We were able to put this thing together every day, put on the show. The audience was responsive to the different characters, the different foods. We were able to refine that and have a pretty good stint down there doing what we did down there, building relationships with local farmers, communities, active in different types of community and charity events and things like that. So not only was it flourishing me in the culinary side, but it was also opening me up to a lot of the community side of what we really wanted to do.
Yeah, because you know, in anything, in any business, you need contacts, especially if you're going to go out on your own, like you did in 06, and open Catch on your own. Now, what told you that you were ready to open Catch, that Keith was ready to be a restaurant owner rather than someone who worked maybe for somebody else?
Okay, so at this time, I had worked at Deluxe for a little while, and it was going through a little transition. They were, the former owners were getting out of the business. The chef that I worked for a long time and the owner of the building were just making a next transition. And so they had a new gentleman that came in, and we worked together for a while, but I just began to see the business begin to go a different way. And there was some realization to myself that, you know, hey, you're talented. And it wasn't any type of bravado or false confidence. It was just something that I kind of observed that, you know, people were coming in to the restaurant to eat my creations. I don't think they were really coming for the craft cocktails per se at that moment.
But you're starting to believe in yourself a little more.
A little more, yeah. And so there were some negotiations, you know, I was there and I felt like, hey, I need a little bit more. And I said, well, you know, maybe I need to get out for a moment and go put some resumes in and just see what really am I worth. And man, did I find out what I was worth, and kind of came back to the table and said, hey, I know you might not be able to do this, but if you could do this, then let's move forward. And the negotiations were, hey, you know, I can do this for you. And part of that, and this is what kind of led up to me moving on, was that, you know, it was, if my food costs were great, if my labor was great, I didn't want to have to be there all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's with anyone's job. When you're working 40 plus hours a week, we have a young family at that time. And I just felt like the job was really consuming. And I said, well, listen, man, you know, if I don't have to be here, I don't want to be here. And he said, that's fine, as long as these things are in check. So that went for a while really well. But then I said, you know what, I'm getting lazy. And I'm feeling like I'm not working that much. I don't really have to work so much. You know, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to go out and work for anybody else. And the opportunity came downtown, our first location. And I said, well, you know what, maybe I'll talk to the owner here and see if he wants to open up a lunch place. Because we weren't doing lunch at the time. And he said, yeah, we'll do it. And he never did, so I did.
There you go.
And so at that moment, now I'm doing this for lunch, an executive chef here at night. And the talk was to try to find another place for Deluxe, maybe closer to the beach. That never kind of manifested, so I found another place down on Market Street. So now we have 1, 2, 3 places that we're getting ready to run, and you know, something had to give. And so that we cut the chains and moved on. It was scary.
Yeah, it's like taking that step is a big deal.
It was huge.
Yeah,
it was huge.
And I don't mean to interrupt you, but 2006. So you got a couple of years, and then all of a sudden, the economic downturn happens.
That's right.
And so I imagine it probably wasn't the easiest time for people spending money and coming out to eat.
Well, that's right, especially on the tier that I was offering it.
Right.
And so what we did was, you know, I really stepped out on faith with that. You know, I'm very much a realist when it comes to things. You know, we were continually blessed with a lot of the things and decisions that we had made up until that point. And one of the things I think in the strange brew of how it all was that when I was at Deluxe, the kitchen was located upstairs. So most folks, the majority, 90% of the folks, You may have seen my name on a menu, but you didn't know me.
Right.
So you saw the food, but you never knew me. And in the new restaurant for lunch, you saw me. And I think that it was some kind of almost magical when they said, this guy, this food, maybe they thought that I should have been a chef imported from somewhere else that could do that, not looking at a homegrown guy
right.
that could offer this to our community.
Did that force you to be more outgoing?
It did, because being upstairs and away, I didn't really have to worry. We had managers. We had other folks that were the intermediaries that would go down and talk to customers. Mm-hmm. But I tell you what, I have customers today that were sitting in my dining room in Deluxe, regulars every week that still come in. And it did. It forced me to kind of reevaluate my approach, and especially when I went out on my own.
Right.
I knew that there was a certain discipline that had to be done, especially with myself. I had to be someone not only who was disciplined, but inspired mm-hmm. as well. My servers, my workmates, my family, that type of thing. And so we stepped out on faith. And downtown was very much experimental, but we outgrew that. We outgrew that really fast, very busy for lunch down there. And we wanted to get somewhere. And one thing about Catch has always been independent. We are sole owners, no investors, mm-hmm. no any of that, at the moment.
Right.
And so that was one thing we really wanted to kind of keep it within us, and we wanted to continue to do that.
Yeah.
And it's been a long road. At times it's been tough because of that economic downturn and mm-hmm. evaluating, exactly what we wanted to do. But the passion has always been wanting to give Wilmington an upgraded experience.
Now, and then you start getting some of the notoriety. Best chef once, mm-hmm. twice. All of a sudden you start getting some of the notoriety with the James Beard Foundation. You're a semifinalist for the best chef in the Southeast. Mm-hmm. For someone like you that comes across to me as being very humble, and someone who comes across as being someone who, just wants to serve the public, was any of that uncomfortable?
I think that for me, it was a solidification of how hard we, not myself, we had been working as a team. Again, I look at my family and the team that helped me get there. Mm-hmm. And, I might be the quarterback, but it's nothing without the team.
Who's on that team?
Well,
beside Angela, I know she's there. Right?
And I have my long-term chef, Craig Montgomery, that's been with me for a very long time. I have several servers that Marie Ryder, that's been with me for a very long time. My bar manager, Ricky Watson, wild guy, but he's been with me for a very long time. And they all kind of know what I stand for. Mm-hmm. My children work with me as well, and various other purveyors and winemakers and folks that have stepped in to really help me to be who I am. Yeah. And there's just so many folks that I don't have time enough to name that have really come to my assistance and helped me. But I'll just tell you that, in those things, sometimes when you step back and you look at the circle instead of being in the circle, I'm very, very, you said humble, but I'm very, very blessed, because there are so many factors when I look at myself being able to do something. I remember being young and said, all I want to do is raise a family here and make it and send my kids to school mm-hmm. and do that. And as an African American in a pretty much dominantly retired white audience, there were a lot of locals here when I started, which now there are a lot of imports that are here now. I mean, being acknowledged, and this is before Top Chef or any of these kind of things.
Right, because this is up to 2011.
Right,
now. This is before any of that happened.
Right.
So this is you in your community.
Right. This meant a lot. This meant a lot.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of folks who I often say that Catch is for everyone to come in and experience, but I don't think everyone quite got what we were doing. Mm-hmm. A lot of folks were just accustomed to that calabash style seafood, and there were very few folks. There were a few that had a different approach to that, but I was very privileged to be acknowledged for that, And there were so many guys that I worked for, like Sean Wellersdick, who owns Portland Grill.
Mm-hmm.
I had a chance to work with him and his philosophy. There are so many other guys, Trip Engel down at the Brasserie, we are friends. And these folks are folks that are my cohorts, so to speak.
Right.
And for me to be acknowledged, it just says that, you guys are also acknowledged. We're part of this same group.
So you don't look at it as somebody put Keith Rhodes' name down. They put Keith and everybody who helps him or has helped him. That's the way you look at it.
That's the way that I look at it.
Yeah.
And very often when I'm, best chef or I'm out and I'm spokesman for not just Catch Restaurant, but Wilmington in general.
Mm-hmm.
You often hear me say I'm here and I'm speaking for all the chefs that are still at the stove right now, that are not here right now for whatever reason.
Right.
They can't pull away, or maybe they don't feel like they're comfortable in front of that audience. I'm glad to be someone who can be here and articulate our community, how beautiful it is, how great the folks are, how beautiful the beaches are, how great the food is.
Yeah.
And so that, I'm really happy with that.
How did you get involved with the James Beard Foundation? Because you've done a lot. I mean, you've gone to boot camp in Vermont. You're actually going to be a part of the culinary cruise collection.
Mm-hmm.
Your dish is going to be served on a cruise in November.
Yeah.
How did you get involved with the James Beard Foundation?
Well, again, I think that for a lot of us, when we're and just as yourself, you're disciplined. You come in, you do your passion, you do what you love. And then one day, the national something says, you've been nominated for best anchor.
Mm-hmm.
You may have never had an idea about that.
Yeah, somebody outside the.
But someone saw you, and someone's been watching you.
Right.
And someone said, "Hey, you know what? John is really awesome. You need to take care of this guy." And so I was approached by that.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, with the James Beard name, it's kind of like the Oscars
Sure.
of food.
Yeah.
And I was very flattered. And of course, if I had the opportunity, I wanted to participate and be involved with that particular foundation. But what I quickly came to realize, and that was brought to my attention by the president and vice president, was that the James Beard Foundation was really looking to take it into a new millennium. And instead of being known for just awards, they were really trying to re-sow their seeds, to reboot, so to speak, and make it more of a community type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that with what I stand for, community, local foods and sustainability and those kind of things, I think that was an attraction to help them further their cause, especially in our particular area.
Yeah, I mean, they honor chefs by making America's food culture more delicious, diverse, and sustainable. So it's not just their name on a trophy or their name on a medal. I mean,
Right.
They're looking to try to do things to make people have better access,
That's
to
right.
make people healthier with access to healthy foods, not just fried or whatever the case may be. So that really interests you?
Yeah, it does, because, again, my particular area here, that's what we've really tried to do throughout. Margaret Shelton, who does a lot of the herbs, Shelton Herb Farm down in Brunswick County, she's one of the longest folks that I personally dealt with in my culinary career, as far as offering me herbs and produce and apples in the wintertime and these different things. And it's about building relationships, long-standing relationships, and really a truth in advertising type of thing. And that's what we really try to do down there. And for me, it's about community. And with the ever-changing fabric of our community, especially if you're a long-term Wilmington resident, let's just say that's been here for 25 years, you've seen Wilmington really, really change.
Oh, yeah.
And for me, if you close your eyes, I remember sitting in the back seat of the car, leaning over, pushing the button on the radio station, watching the little dial go down, and that's what we did. Hey, Granddad, turn the station to this, or
Right.
whatever. Every place you went and you listened to the radio, it was very unique.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody had their own personality.
Right.
And today we can cut on XM radio and drive all the way across country and never hear anything that's personable. We can go every city. We can go to a Sam's. Every city. We don't want for a lot. And for us, Wilmington has such a great identity. It has such a great community and a great spirit and great folks. We need to keep that. You know, a few years ago, I won't dwell on it much, but the Azalea Festival Committee came down to the restaurant and they were talking to me and and I'm sure some others, and said, hey, you know, what do you think that we could do to really enrich the festival and make it a little bit broader? I said, really nothing. I said, you need to keep it kind of just like it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a few different acts might be good to bring some more folks, but keep that same flavor.
Right.
Often, especially where we are in proximity to like a Charleston, people are talking. I just saw something today where they said Charleston was voted the #1 city in the U.S., something like in the top 5 in the world.
Right.
But there is just a certain flavor when you go there
Mm-hmm.
that people expect, not just food-wise, but just the feel, that low country, that southern feel.
Right.
And in Wilmington, we have some of that. But if we don't own that and acknowledge that, and we continue to change that, a lot of the things that brings those folks from Michigan, New York, here to retire, St. James Plantation, Waterford, and all these other great retirement spots, if we don't keep that, then the things that brought those folks here will be gone.
What can you enjoy a meal without without judging how it was created? I mean, when I go somewhere, and even if I'm on vacation, if I turn on the news, I watch and see how they do it. So I've got that. Can you eat a meal anywhere and say, "Oh boy, I wish they would have done a little bit more with this"?
Well, I tell you what, it would not be real truthful for me to say that there is not some judgment there. But I don't mind sitting on a bucket, eating off a paper plate, whether it's barbecuing hush puppies
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, swatting a few flies or whatever. You know, I'm really about the moment, but I am also someone who pays attention to a little bit more of the details.
Right.
A little bit more.
Sure.
And I know how to let my guard down. Yeah.
What is your favorite meal?
Oh, man. Well, naturally, it's going to be seafood.
Right.
And contrary to what most folks think, you know, and you know, and we live in a very judgmental, we live in a very preconceived kind of notions. And yeah, I'm an older black guy raised in the South, but I don't eat Southern food like that. And I never have. I've never really eaten hardcore soul food and things like that. Again, my grounds were very much vegetarian.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, fresh food, you know, I love seafood. That's the #1 thing right there. Salads appeal to me a lot. Those guys at Jason's Deli, they see me coming, you know, I'm over to the salad bar.
Right.
Real particular when I come in there, you know, people say, how do you eat over there? You know what I mean? You're this chef or whatever, but they have a large salad bar and they offer what I want. You
Right.
know, a cup of soup and some salad.
So so you can be a customer, and when you go in some other place, do you learn from what other businesses do?
I learn, but it's also some things that I hope they learn. You know, when, you know, I go into the Jason's Deli, every time I go in there, they give me a box of plastic gloves. They know that I do not want to go to that salad bar and not have a glove on and touch behind others.
Gotcha.
I've mentioned to them about having some sort of sanitizer there. You know, maybe that's something corporate.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, freshness comes with cleanliness,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I think that they're on a different tier. When I'm at Gramercy Tavern, when I'm in New York and I'm traveling and I'm doing a little bit of R&D in some of these bigger folk places, yeah, I'm learning a little bit. But you really have to take it all in. You know, I'm often inspired when I'm traveling to come back to Wilmington to do some different things here. And what we want to do is just pull from the best and really offer the best.
Take me back to the day that you got the phone call about Top Chef.
Wow. So,
Did it come out of nowhere, or did somebody contact you by email? How did that all start?
We got a call from NBC about the show, about appearing on the show. And at that particular time, I didn't want any part of that. I'm not that kind of guy.
Right.
I'm a guy who's just, I like what I'm doing, and I didn't want to go on TV. And I know how on television a lot of times it's very, very scripted. It's TV, and at that time with the Top Chef, we had just survived a lot of these writers' strikes. So TV was taking a huge turn from meaningful content when we were watching TV, which my grandparents usually referred to television, what we would call shows, as programs when I was young.
Right. Yes, I remember.
Okay.
Sure.
And so we were, even if you watched T.J. Hooker, there was a meaning.
Right.
Don't steal. If you watched Archie Bunker, it was, hey, don't have an attitude. There was always something that was left.
A hidden meaning or a message.
Mutual of Omaha,
Right.
Wild Kingdom.
Oh, yes.
There was so much. And now today's TV was when animals attack.
Yeah.
Sure.
Sure.
just a whole different dynamic.
Right.
And so I said, but I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to be made out to be the big angry black guy on TV. And I was like, I love my community too much to just go on a show just to go on a show and then not realize the ramifications of what it could do, not just for my business, but for my community.
Sure.
And so, no, I said no. I did not call back, and that was that. And so the next year came, and they called again. And I said,
Still
no,
not interested?
Don't want to do it. And then one day, one of my servers came and said, hey, there's a table, there's 4 people out here. They wanted to see you. They said the food was great, whatever. And I walked out there, and there were some folks from Top Chef.
They came to see you?
They were there in the restaurant.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, And they were like, hey, we wanted to come down and talk to you, see if you were interested in doing the show. We're down in Charleston hosting and doing some interviews or whatever. And I said, and I thought about it. And I said, man, I can't get out of this one here. And I said, well, I said, I'm busy. I'm working. I said, they're like, the interviews are over on Saturday. So if you can make it by Saturday, we'll be good. And I said, well, unfortunately, I'm working on Saturday and I can't make it. Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, and I was like, yes, I'm not going to do this show.
Right.
And they said, well, you know what? I said, I'm only off on Sundays. And they said, well, we're going to wait for you on Sunday.
Wow.
And they were just like, can you come on Sunday? And I was like, yeah, I can come on Sunday. I mean,
Yeah, you've already said.
Yeah. And so I went down and did the interview. I told my wife before we went, about it or whatever. And she said, Keith, she was just like, there's no way in just a real conversation with anyone that you could tell them that you turned down Top Chef a few times and they really kind of believe that.
Yeah.
So she said, you need to go ahead and go do it. And I went down, did the interview. A month or so later, they called and was like, we picked you to be on the show, what have you, which was really cool. And, I thought that was really going to be a good thing, for us. I got on the show. I got eliminated in that first round, but we came back to a second part of the show and lasted 2 or 3 rounds there. But for me, with the show, what was really good was seeing the dynamic. It got a chance for me to be around some other chefs from around the States in a little bit more of a personal type of manner. Mm-hmm. It let me know that what I was doing here in Wilmington was on par or even higher than what some of these other guys were doing. It let me know that the discipline that I had given myself was really awesome because I saw so many undisciplined folks. But the production side of it and seeing all of that was just the wonder of that. And meeting all of those folks was a new opportunity for me, which opened up the doors for so much more besides just the competition.
Sure.
It was a little tough, I will admit that, because being part of that show is very much like a court sequester. When we arrived, I'm coming off of working, very long days, long weeks.
Where did you go, Los Angeles?
The first place that
no, it was Texas.
First place I went was San Antonio. And for about the first week, I was in a hotel room, about 22 hours a day, just there, with no contact with any other folks besides a production assistant that would take me out and go get something to eat maybe and bring me right back. About 3 days into that, they came, they took my computer, took my phone, took my wallet, all of these different things. And before you go on the show, you go through this huge psychoanalysis kind of testing to make sure that, hey, you're good and you're good for the competition. And after so, the same sort of wind down type of thing to make sure, your frame of mind is good, that kind of thing. And so I knew that this was all part of that process of getting you conditioned to not to know what to expect. And it was a little tough because, I was an owner-operator of my business. We were doing really well. I was pulled away in the heart of the summer, this time of the year, where in Wilmington we rely on tourism a lot to hold us through the rest of the year. And I was very concerned with that. And
Did the infighting and the politics, because doing research and everything like that, there was some infighting that they played up in the episode and all this other, was that all kind of really blown out of proportion? Or
I think that part of the show and what I know now and being involved with all the rest of the people, I still am in very much contact with a lot of those folks.
Right.
It was very much scripted. And you don't know a lot of that until you're put into that particular scene. One of the biggest things that they told us before every quick fire, you had to sign off on paperwork before you see us go in there and cook against each other. You have to sign paperwork. And there's a clause in there that says, even though you prepare the best meal, you could be eliminated. That sounds a little contrary in one, but that's what it is, and it is what it is, and I was very thankful for the opportunity. I learned so much being on that and being involved with that particular show, and people who've won it. I'm good friends with folks that have won it. I'm good friends with folks that are now James Beard recipients. I've just did a Top Chef last year. We did a Top Chef episode down at a Charleston Food and Wine Festival where we all came down and did some things together. And so, but it's all in good fun. And I think that it was a great learning opportunity for me. It did a few other things, not just for me and not just for my community, but it did a lot for a lot of chefs. And one of the things I often talk about is inspiring folks. And it inspired folks to get out there and say, you know what, if Chef Rhodes could do that, I want to do it, and I think that I can do it too.
Did it ever bother you that they played up what I seem to be fairly often, that you'd had the difficulty you'd had, that you'd gone to prison and came out and were a better person? Did that bother you that they played that up that much?
Not really at the moment, because I think that the environment that we were in at the time as a nation of redemption and folks making mistakes can go on to be really great folks. It didn't, because I think that God had allowed me to work really hard in my community to supersede whatever issues that I had came up against in the past. And so I think that that was definitely a consideration, again, with the show, with going on the show. That was part of that. And that was a lot of the, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this on the show. And I think that at that moment, and I'm not a super religious person, but I think that was the time where it was time for me to testify. I was going to be somebody who was going to be a living testimony for, if you make a mistake, you can certainly overcome that to where it's not an issue.
So you talked a couple of seconds ago then about being an example for others.
That's right.
So then you turned it, it seems to me, into a positive, rather than here's the guy who learned to cook in prison, rather instead of, hey, he made mistakes. Yes, he went to prison, but here's what he's doing now.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And I think that, throughout, we often make mistakes as a people, as human beings. And I think, for a guy who may have went out, an example, great folks, but you get stopped for a DUI. You're leaving a party with some folks. Maybe you didn't have too much to drink, but you're right there at that moment and you make that mistake of getting behind the wheel. That doesn't make you a bad person.
No.
You made a bad decision. And you can go on to maybe be an advocate or never do that again. And for me, what I wanted to do is just to be a great person. And in my heart, I've always been a great person from the start. And I think that sometimes, again, we get distracted, and having the opportunity to show discipline, I think that's a lot of what it is. And following your heart and being a good person, a good steward. I will often say that I've come up against a lot of different things. I've come up against a lot of hurdles that I've had to overcome. But because of my travels, I don't let those things per se hinder me for very long. I know when there's a storm, the sun will come out. And because I've experienced that, it's a little bit easier to go through those particular type of things.
You don't talk much about that, though, do you?
I think that when there is a need for that, I do that.
Right.
There are many chefs and restaurant folks and people outside of the business that kind of use that as a leg. There's a chef, Jeff Henderson, Chef Jeff. And I think he's a syndicated cooking show, very, very, very popular, known guy. But that was kind of one of his things that he used a lot of coming out of prison, transition, this is where I came from, this is what I'm doing now. But I don't always think that all, that's not anything when I go out to Noble or I go out to Blair that I'm talking to a bunch of preschoolers about.
No.
But I'll tell you, if I'm maybe at Hoggart or I'm talking to some kids at Williston, that may be something that I bring up.
Yeah.
Because if you're on the path to making a mistake, maybe you need to know this is what can happen, but this is also what can happen.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. You can. Yeah.
So I think that
it's a decision that decisions you made can come back, and you can make bad decisions, but also make really good decisions afterwards.
That's right. And again, I think that's one of the great things, especially these days, that people we understand. Look at it on the news now. When we think about so much of how we're inundated all over the country with a lot of this opioid abuse type of thing.
Yeah.
I just remember in the 90s how bad the crack issue was. Every night on the news, we saw all kinds of just horrific things, whether people getting arrested or lives being destroyed. And I think it was very one-sided. People just saw that as crime.
Mm-hmm.
This is how America changes. And now we, for what it's worth, it's not much crime that we look at when we say opioid abuse. We look at it now as a problem, an issue that needs to be resolved. There is compassion that is there because we need to do something as a group, as a whole, to make this better. So the point I'm making is compassion. People are understanding and saying, okay, people make mistakes. Mm-hmm. People may have taken too many a pill here or there, but you know what? That happens. What can we do to make sure that it doesn't happen again?
Right.
And I think that that's kind of the climate of understanding that people are people, and we all make mistakes. And what do we do from that? Do we continue to do that, or do we build off of that?
How important is it for you to help the food banks and Phoenix Employment Ministries and Nourish NC and groups like that?
Well, for us, again, community. The community made me. They made me who I am. Everything, along with some, again, self-discipline, my success is from the community. And I know that the only way to receive is to give. And I don't mean monetarily, I mean just blessings in general, keys to open up doors.
Right.
And for me, the afforded success and limelight that's been shown to me in my community, it's only right that we go over to the Good Shepherd and feed. It's only a matter of time before you're going to see us coming up here in the next few weeks, standing with Walking Tall to feed some of the folks that need to be fed. It's only a matter of time that you'll see the next 40 Eats dinner, which is a local cooperative of restaurants that put on charity events for local charities. You know, we were able early this year to give Nourish NC a check for $10,000+. These things are very important to all of us. And you may be talking to me now, again, because I'm part of that team of folks that may not be sitting here right now. But we are all together with our ideology and how we feel about the community. You know, restaurants like Manna, restaurants like Pembroke's and RX and Portland Grill and Pine Valley Market, and all of these folks that really work hard behind the scenes to make sure that people have.
What's it like when a Gwyneth Paltrow or a Robert Downey Jr. or somebody like that comes in and Gwyneth wants to shoot something with you for her blog and millions of people see it online? What's that like? Is that a kick for you? It's
a kick, just like when John Evans calls and says, hey, you know, I want to talk to you. You know, it's just like that. Because it's just like a ball player who's been doing the job for a long time, and then you get that deal.
Yeah.
It's almost surreal because now you're seeing Michael Jordan,
yeah.
and now you're seeing these folks. And so when the film industry was here very prominently in our community, that was the norm. And that was something that Catch was heavily involved with, whether it was food trucks going out and catering events any other time or having those folks in the restaurant. And that was a very good time for us. And I anticipate those times coming back to our community.
Right.
But those are great times. And again, for me, you know, it's very surreal. But again, to see my staff, the energy from those folks, and then our community. You know, I just can't. If I could change my name to Community Rhodes, maybe I would. But I don't say that as a marketing tool. I say it because it's passion and it's love.
Yeah, I really, in this time that we have sat down, you know, I mean, you've been in the station before, and you know, I've known that you've done tons of things, and you've been, you know, named, you know, best chef and James Beard and everything else like that. But you know, you really truly, you're a buy local. Really a big buy local guy, but you're just a local guy, period.
Right. And I was born in Columbus, Ohio. We moved here very young, and I spent a lot of summers in Philadelphia with some other family that were there. But I love calling Wilmington home. I've lived my dream here.
Yeah.
I've raised my family here.
So what's next? You said you have Catch on Market. You had the food bar downtown that has since closed.
Yeah.
You got the food trucks.
Yeah.
So what's next? What are you looking at next?
Well, we're looking at North 4th Street, desert area over there, very much a food desert, an economic area that is in distress. And some folks would say you're crazy to try to do an opportunity over there. But I think, again, when I think about Wilmington and what we could offer, something that's affordable and fresh to that particular area, we're looking right around 4th and Nixon. We're working with a developer over there to be able to offer some food to those folks over there, still staying with our kind of seafood ideology, but very accessible price points. And, you know, in that particular area, growth is moving very fast.
Oh, sure.
And so to kind of get in right now and put the seed there and be able to sow some roots in that community, I think that our strain, our particular plant of Catch is known, and it's known for being someone who can get in and make a difference, and that's what we're trying to do over there in that particular area. We're hoping that other businesses flock to that particular area because there's strength in numbers. It'll bring folks over. But we're looking forward to doing that, and we're looking forward in the next 6 months to having a restaurant over there in that area serving seafood. And, of course, local first, but very accessible seafood, maybe even a seafood counter that would allow folks to come in and get something that's fresh. We would like to offer prepared food, a very small prepared food area as well. So folks, not only with disposable money that can come in and eat, but folks that are on a very limited income can do. And I think that that's something that's only right that we do. With the Farm Bill, there are a lot of things that are being changed right now, SNAP benefits and you know, just so many things that, you know, we're suffering right now with clean water right now. I was just in D.C. a few months ago lobbying in D.C. under the Farm Bill. And one of the things under this Farm Bill was access to clean water. Of course, immediately then, we were all thinking and praying about the folks in Flint, Michigan, not to know that one day we would be looking in the mirror with an issue of our own.
When someone walks in the front door of Catch, what do you think? What does it mean to you when someone walks in the front door of your establishment?
Oh man, they're here to get a great experience. They're here to experience not only the great food, but great customer service. You can experience what we know as some of the best food offered on the coast. I think that it's really awesome that you come in and support us. We've been in the community. We're proven in the community. The community supports us. Wilmington Magazine just voted me again this year, best chef. And I mean, that to me, that blew me away. More restaurants that are open, lots of great talent here in town. And again, it just says a lot about the community. And I mean, I love that. I love that. And we want to continue to aspire to be the best that we can be and to inspire others to be the best that they can be. And coming in to the restaurant and these Friday and Saturday nights, the last 2 weeks have been gangbusters every night.
Awesome. I've
probably done more business these last 2 weeks than any of the other years consecutively, night after night after night. And it's a lot of work. But, you know, again, we have some dedicated folks. We have a small staff of folks, and I love them, and I thank them because, again, quarterback of the team, nothing without the defense, without the offense. You know, a lot of folks working really hard to make sure that we give folks a great dining experience.
Well, from best chef, top chef, businessman, community servant, dad, husband, you have built Catch up into a tremendous brand. And you have made Catch synonymous with Wilmington and Keith Rhodes' name. And this is a better community because Keith Rhodes is here. I will speak for the Wilmington community and say that. And I appreciate you taking the time today to sit down because I know you're a busy guy. But I just wanted to learn a little bit more about Keith Rhodes.
Well, I thank you, John, for taking the time. And again, you know, thank you, thank Wilmington. And we just look forward to serving all of you guys in the future. Thank you so much.
Now, you don't have to go on that November cruise to experience one of Keith Rhodes' menu creations. All you have to do is drive to Market Street in Wilmington to the Catch restaurant, Monday through Saturday from 5:30 to 9 p.m. And online, it's catchwilmington.com. If you know someone who you think would be a good interview for an upcoming episode of the podcast, drop me an email. jevans@wect.com. You can also reach out on Twitter or Facebook. I'm on those social media sites every day. And if you like what you heard in this episode, please leave a review or a rating. That'll help us bring in even more listeners. I'm John Evans. Thanks so much for joining us on this episode of One on One.